Welcome to the first full episode of Established Dominance Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Ding. Thanks for joining us today. And the goal of this podcast is to help you build a dominant draft team to compete this season. Specifically, we're going to focus on running backs for this episode. And we'll discuss injuries, ADP, draft strategy, and more. So let's get started. First off, injuries. Christian McCaffrey's got a slight calf issue. He's not practicing right now. They're saying he's going to be good for the opener. I have no reason not to believe them, so I would draft him with confidence. Next is Joe Mixon. He's got a quad injury right now. We were supposed to get an update on him. Haven't seen anything yet today, but I'm assuming he'll be ready for the season, so draft with confidence. And last is Kendry Miller. He's important because he's a second or third string running back to Kamara. He's having some issues with a hamstring injury right now, so that could improve Kamara's value, so continue to monitor that. Okay, let's do a quick ADP review. ADP is average draft position for those who don't know. That's where players are currently being drafted in leagues. So if I said a player had an ADP of 90, that means he's probably going to be taken with the 90th pick overall or thereabouts. And that translates in a 12-team regular snake draft to a player getting drafted somewhere in the 8th round. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so here's the ADPs for the top 20 running backs that are getting drafted as of today in a 12-team PPR league. So keep that in mind. All right, so we've got CMC with an ADP of 1, Robinson at 4, Hall at 5, Gibbs at 12, Taylor at 13, Barkley at 14, Etienne at 22, A-Chain at 22, Williams at 24, Henry 25, Pacheco 33, Rashad White at 39, Jacobs 41, Cook 44, Mixon at 49, Kamara 54, Walker at 57, Jones at 65, Stevenson at 66, and Montgomery at 73, rounding out the top 20 running backs that are coming off the board. That's not necessarily the rank order of how good they are, but that's how they're coming off the board when people are drafting them currently. All right, let's take a look at how that translates into the draft. In the draft, that means in the first round, the top 4 running backs are coming off the board. In the second round, 6 more running backs come off. In the third round, just a single running back right now, and that's Pacheco. It's almost all wide receiver and a tight end, Laporta, obviously. And then in round 4, 4 more running backs come off the board. Round 5, 2 more. And then round 6, the last 3, rounding out the top 20. So by the end of the second round, the top 10, more than likely of the top 20 running backs are gone. So keep that in mind. Armed with that knowledge, let's take a look at draft strategy. And before we get specifically into drafting running backs, let's talk about overall draft strategy. All right. First of all, every draft is different. There's different rules, players, structures, payouts, Yahoo, ESPN, NFFC, you name it, they're all different. Maybe it's a PPR league, it's a half PPR, maybe it's a 0.1 PPR, PPR meaning points per reception, or maybe it's just a home league with all your high school buddies and everybody grabs a quarterback in the first round. Okay, every draft is different. All right, there's even leagues where quarterbacks only get 4 points for a throwing touchdown. Okay, and there's a specific term for that. We call it stupid. But yeah, maybe you're in one of those leagues. All right. The point is, you have to adapt. You got to be flexible based on the type, based on your position in the draft. All right. Don't panic. Whatever happens, if somebody makes a run on tight ends or defenses or whatever, all right, just be ready for that and have a game plan and study up before you go in and be able to change your philosophy mid-range. When it comes to running backs, there are 3 really popular strategies for drafting them. Running back heavy, that's where you draft 3 to 4 straight rounds of running backs or 4 out of the first 5 rounds. There's a balanced approach where you grab just as many wide receivers as you do running backs in the first 4 rounds. And then there's the 0 running back approach where you grab wide receivers for the first 3 to 4 rounds. And then you look for value running backs somewhere in rounds 5 through 8. Now, I've used all of these different strategies. There's pros and cons to each. Every season is different. Also, where you draft within the draft, aka position 6, 7, 8, 9, that can actually affect your ability to be successful in each one of these strategies. So looking at this year's draft, assuming we're talking a 12-team PPR scoring league, okay, so non-best ball, I'd recommend against the running back heavy approach past the second round. But if you go running back for rounds 1 and 2, you need to look to grab a solid wide receiver in the third round, or you could be facing a nightmare this season. Example, if you are drafting position 1, you're going to grab McCaffrey. And then all the way around, you have the last pick in round 2, and Derrick Henry is there. You take him. So now you've got 2 top 10 running backs. That's pretty awesome. In the third round, you need to look for a wide receiver because After that, you've lost a lot of value. And Cooper Kupp will still be there in round 3. So imagine having CMC, Derrick Henry, and Cooper Kupp. See, running back heavy can work. In this year's draft, it can work, I think, personally, if you are drafting position 1, 4, or 5. Now, for the balanced approach, honestly, that is possible at every single position in this year's draft. However, there are going to be some positions where you will be reaching if you try to use a balanced approach. Some of those positions would be 6, 7, 8, and 9, where a top flight wide receiver is going to be available to you. And then on the backside, in round 2, you're going to have to reach a little bit for a running back if you want to keep with a balanced approach. Otherwise, you'll have to grab a top flight wide receiver. And then in rounds 3 and 4, you're going to have to go running back. And there's not a whole lot of value there in round 3. The last strategy, zero running back. If you're going to grab wide receivers for the first 3 to 4 rounds, that's possible. And this year, I'd only recommend if you're drafting in the back half of the round. So if you're positioned 6 through 12, that's pretty much the only place you can do that. Because if you're drafting, obviously, 1, you're going to grab CMC. 4 and 5, you're going to grab Hall or Robinson. And then on the backside, a lot of quality running backs are going to be available to you. So to pass up a top 10 running back in the first 2 rounds with an early pick is going to be very difficult for you to do. So I recommend if you are going to go the zero running back strategy, you employ it somewhere if your position is in the back half of the draft. Again, these strategies can work in all formats, but they do have some limitations. If you're in a best ball league, all right, all bets are off. And I play best ball leagues every year, and I try to run each one of these strategies to see which one is successful. And every year is different. So you just have to see what's available at the time and work it. But in best ball leagues, you're drafting 30, 35 players. So you have the flexibility to do all 3 of these strategies if you'd like. And now the moment that everyone's been waiting for, my top 20. Woohoo! All right. But before we get to that, assumptions first. First off, I'm assuming that everybody in this top 20 is going to be able to play 16 games. I know that's a stretch. Okay, most of the running backs in the top 20 last year got hurt at some point in time and missed time. But I can't predict those injuries. I have my own opinions, but I'm not Nostradamus. So let's just assume that they're all going to give us at least 16 games, just to be fair. Now, we're going to use a PPR scoring. So if you're in a non-PPR league or a half-point PPR, you're going to need to adjust. And I'll try to mention that along the way if it's going to be a significant movement. And then the last thing is just because they're in my top 20 doesn't mean I'm going to draft them. All right. I look at a lot of metrics. I'm evaluating players. Some of those stats we'll talk about, but I look at opportunities and potential. And those are high on my list of priorities. All right. So what they do with that opportunity and potential, that remains to be seen. Okay. There's some good players out there, honestly, that just give me a bad feeling. All right. And if they give you a bad feeling, just go with your gut. Skip it. Take the next person on the list. But I just want to be honest with you. When I make this top 20, it is, in my mind, the potential that they have for the season. And then, obviously, if they get injured, well, all bets are off there. But I'll be transparent on the ones that I don't like and the ones that I think are just, someone to skip. So keep that in mind. Starting off as my number 1 running back, it's going to come as a complete shocker to the world. It's McCaffrey. I really don't have any no notes. This guy's a beast. He's the best running back out there, bar none. I know he's got a calf strain, whatever. Don't care. Moving on. At number 2, I have Breece Hall. Right now, his ADP, first round, we already talked about it. Strength of schedule, he's got one of the easiest strength of schedules out there. He's got A-Rod back. Offense is going to be even more explosive with a strong defense. They're going to put points on the board. He should have TD progression. Possible PPR regression, though. He may not catch as many balls as he did last time. He caught 76 balls last year. But I still expect him to go over 300 points total. This is definitely the number 2 running back off the board. And number 3, I have Robinson from Atlanta. Atlanta has the easiest strength of schedule this year. He's coming off in the first round, so if you want him, you got to grab him in the first round. This one, though, this one's all about maximum potential and opportunity. All right, he's going to have a better quarterback, Cousins. Hopefully that translates into more points, more opportunities for touchdowns for the team. It's an easy schedule. Second-year player. And Algier will probably fall back to the wayside. So I'm expecting, last year he only had 4 rushing touchdowns. I would expect him to at least double that. He'll probably put up 10 rushing touchdowns and about 1,200 yards rushing. That's going to put him near or above 300 points total on the season. So this is an easy play. However, he has not shown that he can make that happen yet. And, oh, by the way, he's one of the worst fumblers in the NFL right now at the running back position. So that is a drag on his value. And let's face it, coaches like running backs who can hold on to the ball. Coming in at number 4 is Travis Etienne. Now, don't believe all the hype about Bigsby taking reps from him. That's completely overblown. In fact, the owner came out and said the entire coaching staff is going to get fired next year if they don't get to the playoffs. So these guys like to keep their jobs, and Travis Etienne can get them wins. So he's not going to lose any reps. He's going to put up the same numbers that he did last year, and they have an easier schedule by far. So 280, 290 total points from Travis is well within the realm of possibility, so draft him with confidence. And number 5 is Jahmyr Gibbs out of Detroit. Now, I'm a Detroit fan, so I'm a little bit biased here, but this kid has got talent. Again, it's about opportunities and potential. Tons of potential for Gibbs. Opportunities are the problem for him because Montgomery is still a great goal line back, and he's going to vulture touchdowns away from Gibbs. So Gibbs is going to have to create his own touchdowns, and he catches a lot of balls. So I'm expecting Gibbs to probably see a progression in touchdowns. Last year, he put up 10 rushing touchdowns. I'm guessing he's going to get at least 12, maybe 13, maybe even 14, and he's going to give us about 1,100 yards. And then as far as the catches are concerned, he's probably going to stay about the same on the receptions and the receiving touchdowns. So I'm looking for him to give us about 270 points this year. I don't think that Montgomery gives up too many of those touchdowns, but I can see progression out of Gibbs as a young player moving forward. And number 6 is Kiron Williams. He's got an easier schedule this year. I think that Blake Corum actually makes his life easier and can take some of the load off. He only played 12 games last year. He got hurt. However, he was averaging 21 points a game for 12 games. So if Corum can come in and spell him a little bit, I think that keeps him fresh, and it allows him to repeat, if not slightly improve off of last year. I'm guessing he's going to probably put up about 260 total points, similar numbers, but I don't see him dropping off just because they picked up a good rookie who, honestly, his measurables are about the same as Kiron coming out of the draft as well. So for Kiron, I think at number 6, this is a perfect spot for him. At number 7, the workhorse, Derrick Henry. Yes, he changed teams, and he doesn't catch a lot of balls coming his way. He only caught 28 last year. But he's going to Baltimore, who has a tough schedule, just like he did in Tennessee, but they're a run-first offense. Old man put up 1,167 yards and 12 touchdowns last year. And now he's going to a team that values the run and is going to have a lot of scoring opportunities inside the 5-yard line. Sounds like a perfect opportunity for Henry to get exactly what he did last year. So I'm looking for 250 points minimum out of him, and that's going to put him at a number 7 finish, and I feel really confident about that. Last year, Derrick Henry played all 17 games. He's a beast. Nobody can tackle that guy. Number 8, we have James Cook. Now, last year, he finished number 11 overall, put up 1,100 yards plus rushing, 44 catches. The problem is he doesn't get any touchdowns, and that's because Allen steals them all from him. The guy's a touchdown hog, and Allen's not going anywhere. And because his wide receiving core isn't as good this year, guess what? He's got to get his touchdowns somehow, so he's going to vulture Cook again. I'm hoping that Cook can get a couple of extra touchdowns and rise from maybe 2 to 4 to 6, And that's going to throw him up into the 250-point range, and that'll get him into the top 10. So he's a solid running back. I could see him not performing in the top 10 if Allen continues to steal his touchdowns, but there's a lot of potential there, and he's a solid back. He's averaging 4.7 a carry. This kid has top 10 potential. Draft with confidence. Number 9 is Etienne out of Miami. Now, this is an opportunity and potential play. The issue for him is health. He only played 11 games last year. The other issue for him is Mostert, who constantly gets all of the touchdowns inside of the 5-yard line. Got 18 of them last year. Now, if Etienne, who got 8 touchdowns and 800 yards rushing last year, can pick up some of those touchdowns, well, then we have a top 10 running back. I do want to throw out there, as a disclaimer, remember, Etienne had a 51-point game last year, and he only put up 191 points. That's like 25% of his total points in one game. So hopefully we can see him spread that out throughout the entire season, have a healthy season, take some of those touchdowns away from Mostert, hopefully 5 of them at least. That'll vault him to about 230 total points, maybe 240, and he's going to land right at number 9, and that's a great place for him. So I think this is a top 10 running back in the making. Rounding out the top 10, this is going to be a surprise. I'm going with Alvin Kamara. I know age is a factor. I know Derek Carr is a factor, but talked about the injury to Miller earlier. That can impact him in a positive way. He's got a super easy schedule. All right. I expect touchdown progression, maybe not PPR though. I mean, this guy caught 75 balls last year, and that's why he finished as the number 12 overall. Now, if you're in a non-PPR league, this guy drops significantly, all right, because he only had 1 receiving touchdown and 694 yards rushing over 13 games. So that's definitely going to be an issue. So if you're non-PPR, Kamara is not in your top 10. You're going to have to drop in more than likely down to, I'd say probably 20. It's going to be a significant drop. So keep that in mind. But if you're in a PPR league, 12 team, head to head, if Kamara can stay relatively healthy, give us 16 games, and then the coaching staff figures out that he's still a talented player, he's going to score 230 points, and he's going to give you a top 10 finish. At the 11 spot, it's Barkley. Changing teams might be a positive for him, but I think actually it's going to be a little bit of a negative. Is he still going to finish number 11? Yeah, I think so. I could see him finishing 11, 12, 13. He's probably going to have a touchdown and a receiving regression. All right. He had 41 receptions back in New York, and then he had 6 touchdowns rushing, almost 1,000 yards. Okay. But what happens inside the 5 every time? The tush push, and you got Jalen Hurts stealing all of the touchdowns for the running backs. It's like Jared Allen. It's the same thing. They've got to get their touchdowns somehow, and they got to make their money. So unfortunately, the running backs pay the price. They do all the work. Saquon last year played 14 games, stayed fairly healthy, put up 225 points. I can see him doing that again. But for me to crack the top 10, you really need 230 points. And I'd say 225 is about right, probably a ceiling. I could see him scoring less and being a little bit more of a disappointment. So as far as drafting with confidence here, buyer beware. I'm not sure I would want Saquon Barkley. And right now, he's going off in the 2nd round. And that is just too high a price, in my opinion, to pay for Barkley with a 14 ADP. So as much as I think he's going to be the number 11 overall, I'm avoiding him in my drafts. Number 12 is Rachaad White. It's not a sexy pick. The guy averages 3.6 yards a carry. Sub 1,000 yard rusher, 6 touchdowns, caught 64 balls though in 3 touches. I mean, that's pretty good. So he's getting a lot of use. He has a lot of opportunity. He's still the starter. There's really not anyone who's going to take his job away from him. And he played 17 games last season. So he's healthy. All right. There's just something in me. I just can't believe that he's going to match all of the numbers that he did from last year, where he finished number 4 overall in PPR. I mean, that was a total surprise. He put up 270 points. I just can't see him reaching that this year. But I mean, I could be totally wrong. Again, I'm trying to be dispassionate about it. I'm trying to look at it from potential and opportunity. And He has all of the opportunity. His potential 3.6 a carry, that could use some improvement. But honestly, there's a chance he could easily finish in the top 10. So I really can't drop him that much. I just, in my heart of hearts, I just can't believe he's going to put off that kind of season like he did last year. Okay. Lucky number 13. That's sarcasm. Jonathan Taylor. 2 years straight, he hasn't played more than 11 games. He's got a quarterback who only played, was it 2 or 3 games last year, coming off of a major injury and coming back. And that quarterback likes to run. And he also turns over the ball. I don't really see Taylor being this explosive. I'll be honest, in my heart of hearts, I just can't see it. I can't see him finishing 13. I mean, I can't see him getting past 11 games. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I want these guys to be healthy. I want them to put in a full season. And if Jonathan Taylor puts in a full season, I mean, there is great potential here. He could easily finish in the top 10. I just can't see it. He's coming number 5 off the board. I mean, early in the second round is when people are drafting him. And I just need a little bit more proof. And the last 2 years haven't been any proof. I mean, when he's on the field, he's averaging 15 yards a game, or 15 points a game. But he's not on the field enough. All right. Just trying to be real. In all of my drafts, I am not touching Taylor. I will skip him. I would rather grab a wide receiver, or I would rather grab a running back after him. Full transparency there. At number 14, Joe Mixon. Now, I know he's got a quad injury. I think he'll be beyond that by the time the season starts. His real problem is he's going to Houston, where you've got a young quarterback who wants to be the league MVP and is slinging the ball all over the place, and the running backs aren't getting any love. Now, Joe Mixon, when he was with Cincy, was a focal point. He finished number 6 last year. All right, I've got him at 14, and I think I'm giving him too much credit. But I'll be honest, again, he has potential, and he has the opportunity. He's the starter, and there's really no one behind him, Pierce, otherwise. But honestly, no one behind him is going to vulture anything from him. He had 9 touchdowns last year. I don't see him matching that, just based on how Houston runs their offense. And he had over 1,000 yards, 52 catches. That I definitely do not see, because Houston is not a team that dumps it off to the running back. They have a talented quarterback who can find what could be the best wide receiver core across the team in the NFL. I mean, Collins, Diggs, and Dell. I mean, honestly, Joe Mixon is there to get the short yardage and to punch in a touchdown or 2 here or there. But I think 14 is about the best that we can offer for Joe Mixon. At 15, I have Pacheco. I'm not a Pacheco fan. Full transparency. I don't even think he finishes this high. But again, potential opportunity. He has that opportunity. Casey puts up a lot of points. The problem is it doesn't go to running backs. All right. Mahomes loves Kelsey, and Kelsey loves Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift loves herself. And that's how the team works. All right. Pacheco just gets lost in the mix. Now, he average rush 4.6 yards a carry. That's respectable. Puts up 15 points a game. He only played 14 games last season. So if he puts in 16 games, the guy can score 225 points. And that puts him, at 11 overall. And that's not bad. The problem is he going to get 7 touchdowns this year? I don't know. I just have my doubts. Pacheco is not somebody I truly want to draft. I would rather pass him by and grab one of the next 5 running backs we're going to talk about. But the opportunity for him is there. For him, in a PPR league, he would definitely stay here, if not drop a couple of spaces just for reference. Okay, for these last 5 running backs, I would say that they're interchangeable. But if you made me put it on paper, this is the way I would go. At number 16, David Montgomery. 13 touchdowns last year, over 1,000 yards. He's a goal line beast, and he will be again this year. I don't think he's going to get 13 touchdowns. I think Detroit takes an offensive step back. I think last year was kind of an outlier. But be that as it may, if he only pulls back about 3 touchdowns, he's still going to put up 190 points overall. And that's a solid number 16 finish. And if there's any injuries to Gibbs, well, he becomes the focal point and the workhorse, and now his numbers are going to go up. I mean, we have 2 Detroit running backs in the top 16, and I'm absolutely okay with that. At number 17, it's Raheem Mostert out of Miami. Yep, 2 Miami running backs in the top 17. Is it possible? Absolutely. Mostert put up 270 points last year, and that was mostly because he had 18 rushing touchdowns. He's definitely going to have touchdown regression. There's no doubt about it. I'm guessing he's going to put up 10 touchdowns. And 10 touchdowns, even if he still puts up over 1,000 yards, he's still putting up 200 points on the season. I mean, that's a top 15 finish. Might see a little bit old man status coming out. He might be less than 1,000 yards, still put up 10 touchdowns. That's still a solid year. Number 17, easily. He could be 16, 15, 14, even 13 by the end of the year. So Raheem Mostert, definitely a value. And his ADP is disgusting. Right now, it's 90. That's the 8th round for a guy who's more than likely going to finish in the top 20. Draft with confidence. Number 18 is DeAndre Swift. Rookie quarterback, new team, solid running back, put up over 1,000 yards, only 5 rushing touchdowns, 4.6 yards a carry, very respectable, and 39 catches. Now he's got a rookie quarterback. Hopefully he'll dump it to him a few times. He might exceed his catches from last year. Hopefully he can get some touchdowns. But with a rookie quarterback, I'm guessing this is his ceiling. And last year he put up 200 points. And I'm guessing 200 points is about the right number for him. But the starter on that team, it's been retooled. They put a lot into the offense. I think there's an opportunity for him to definitely crack the top 20. Number 19 is James Conner. Yep, the old man is still in the top 20. He was averaging 5 yards a carry last year. Cracked 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. Only played in 13 games. Now, I know he's got young kids behind him. I get that. But he's as solid as they come when he's on the field, averaging 5 yards a carry. 15.5 points per game as a starting running back. That can help you anchor a team, especially if you're going to go with the 0 running back strategy early on. These guys like Mostert, Swift, Conner, they're going to end up anchoring your team and helping you win, especially if you get some top flight wide receivers and everybody stays healthy. So something to think about there. For Conner, from a non-PPR standpoint, he actually moves up a couple of notches because he doesn't catch a lot of balls. Last but not least, at number 20, Stevenson. I can't believe I'm putting a New England back in the top 20. But with Belichick gone, there's an opportunity for them to commit to the run. And with young quarterbacks and terrible quarterbacks, he has the opportunity to double his touchdown output from 4 to 8 from last year. And if he stays healthy, he can definitely crack the top 20 and be successful. This is definitely a risky pick. Before we move on to the final segment, 2 quick things about the top 20 list. First, a lot of these guys have bye week 12. And that's going to be an issue if you go running back heavy or you try to double up on the running backs. So take a look at their bye weeks and try to deconflict those. And then the second thing is, don't get hung up on exactly where these guys are in the top 20. All right. If you grab a top 5 running back, awesome. If you grab somebody between 5 and 10, fantastic. 11 and 15, try to think of it like that in blocks of 5. And especially the last 5, honestly, they're all interchangeable, and you should be looking at your bye weeks because if you're grabbing a second running back and they're both in the top 20, you definitely want to deconflict those. So that's 2 things I would leave you with before we move on to the final segment. Our last segment of today's show is what I like to call the overpriced and underappreciated, or what my teenage son calls the sus and the sigmas. Yeah, I'm still looking for a Google teenage translator, so if you got one, just drop it in the comments so I can go take a look at it. Anyway, this is the part of the show where we're going to take a quick look at potentially bad and good deals in the draft, all right? So just quickly, from an overpriced category, I still think JT is the number 1 reach. I just don't think he's a top 5 running back, but, be that as it may. Jacobs, he's the 13th running back coming off the board. I don't even think he's going to crack the top 24. I mean, he's got a young quarterback who's, well, here's another young quarterback trying to be the league MVP. All right. He likes to look good throwing touchdowns. He doesn't really want to give it to Jacobs and make Jacobs look good. All right. So I'm thinking mediocre PPR because, well, it's Green Bay and he'd rather throw to one of his 3 top flight wide receivers. So take that for what it's worth. Then finally, Jonathan Brooks. Coming off of ACL surgery, I'm sure the kid's a beast and he's going to be a great running back, but they're already saying that he's not going to be available until the 3rd week. Now, if you've had your knee reconstructed like I have, I can tell you it's difficult to come back, even for elite athletes. And this is a young kid. He needs to get back up to game speed. He needs to learn all the protections. He needs to learn the audibles, and they're going to work him in. I mean, this is a draft pick that could potentially solidify their future. And Carolina isn't exactly going to be in the playoffs most likely this year. So it could be a situation where he comes up week 4, 5, 6, and they don't have any wins. And the coaching staff is looking at it like, we'll get him a couple of reps, but let's just save him for next year. So buyer beware there. Okay, let's talk about underappreciated. Montgomery. He's going in the 6th or 7th round. He's 20th off the board. I've got him, number 16, but he still has potential to be a number 13 guy. So again, if you're going no running back as far as your strategy is concerned, you definitely need to be looking for him. Mostert, he's going in the 7th or 8th round, and the guy is going to put up 200 plus points more than likely. All right, he's a top 20 guy. So there's a definite value play for you. And then finally, Gus Edwards. Yeah, ride the Gus bus. Chargers are going to need somebody to run the ball. Dobbins isn't exactly healthy and he's injury prone. And Gus, he's a solid guy. I mean, he has top 30 potential and he's coming off as the 39th overall running back. So something to keep in mind. And while we're on the topic of underappreciated, I want to give a shout out to the men and women in uniform who protect the freedoms that we hold dear. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. Finally, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and follow us on X, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts so you can stay up to date on our latest content. Next episode, we'll dive into wide receivers and more draft strategy. And until then, remember, established dominance isn't just a catchphrase. It's a commitment. Are you ready?